What's up, everybody? Thanks for checking out another Draft Doctor episode. This is the series where Ben and I go through, well, patron-submitted drafts. You can check that out on our Patreon at patreon.com/draftchaffpod, and we're going to walk through this draft here from one of our submissions. This is a Midnight Hunt draft, so let's get into it. We see here our first pick is Angel Fire Ignition was the rare, and the card that our drafter did pick here. We also see a Play with Fire, Overwhelmed Archivist, Defenestrate. Yeah, Search Party Captain, I guess, Revenge of the Drowned. What else is catching your eye in this pack?
All right, I'm not gonna lie. I do love me an Angel Fire Ignition. But you know, as draft doctors, it's our goal to uphold the hippopotamus oath, right? So we have to, make sure we actually try to do good for our patient here. To be honest, I probably wouldn't take a red, white, gold card pack one, pick one if it can be avoided, especially when there's a few options in this pack that are more appealing. Blue black is kind of still the king of the format, but we've got an Overwhelmed Archivist, we got a Defenestrate. I'm probably more likely to take one of these cards than a similar power level gold card. It is a very strong one, but it's not an unbeatable bomb. I don't think it's worth going hard into red-white for. I love picking up that card when I'm in red-white, but starting the draft with it, I mean, statistically, you're not always going to wind up with it in your deck. You're just not always going to wind up at red-white. But sometimes you'd rather just have like a monocolored card because it's more likely to wind up in your deck, or you might want a more powerful effect like Defenestrate or the Archivist.
Yeah, that's true. And then, I do like to see Play with Fire. We have talked a lot on the show, and a lot of folks are picking up on the Play with Fire, the red spells kind of package. And both Angel Fire Ignition and Play with Fire can kind of play into that a bit. But again, it's not exactly where you want to start a lot of times. Like, if you can get into it and realize that lane's open, it's great. If not, yeah, probably best to leave it alone. So yeah, I think I would have been on the Archivist here. That card's just pretty sweet, and it goes into both the blue-red and blue-black versions of the decks, so I think I'd pick that up here. Defenestrate's fine, and it's a great removal spell, but I'd rather take the uncommon here.
Yeah, honestly, either is pretty solid. I probably would take Defenestrate. I really like playing black in this format, but that and the Archivist are both very solid first picks.
On to pick 2 here, we see an Eaten Alive as the pick, which is just very easy to scoop up in almost any situation. We did end up taking the Angel Fire Ignition in that last pick, but we also see a Burn the Accursed, Stromkirk Blood Thief, Tavern Ruffian is not really anything to talk about. Flip the Switch, Geist Wave, so some pretty powerful blue cards coming our way too, and another Revenge of the Drowned. But yeah, I think Eaten Alive is a pretty clear pick here.
It would pair well with the Defenestrate. Had you taken the Archivist, you'd probably take Revenge of the Drowned or Flip the Switch here. Some of these uncommons are not quite it. The Blood Chief or Blood Thief rather, and the Village Watch, not a huge fan of. Contortionist Troop, if you're playing a deck that can cast this thing for 4 or 5 pretty early, then yeah, that can be a real powerhouse, especially when it starts tossing counters everywhere. But I agree with our patient here. Eaten Alive is definitely the pick.
Into pick 3, we see in black just a Bladebrand, Blood Pact. Well, there is a Siege Zombie. Do like to see that. That's a fantastic card. And Necrosynthesis I haven't had a lot of experience with, but hasn't been, at least what I've seen, all that overwhelming. I think I would be, in terms of black cards here, to kind of pair with our Eaten Alive, I would go with the Siege Zombie. We see that our patient did take a Voldaren Ambusher, which is interesting. I guess they're looking to try to stay in red rather than black. Maybe they're worried black might dry up too quickly. But when you're getting cards past you like Eaten Alive and Siege Zombie, I'm really keeping an eye on black. There's also an Ardent Elementalist in red and an Arcane Infusion, which maybe tells me red's a little open. But this is a hard card to make work, and you really need that spells package and a lot of good spells to really get it there. There's also a Geist Wave here in blue, but blue looks to be getting cut a little bit in this pack, perhaps, and a Silverbolt, if we completely couldn't decide on anything.
Yeah, and nice analysis there, Doctor. I think I'm on something similar. But in the red cards in this pack, I'm probably taking the Ardent Elementalist over the Ambusher. Ambusher, I've never actually really had do anything. I mean, sometimes it can come in and snipe down like a little X1 flyer or something, but the number of hoops you have to jump through for this card to be worth it it's a lot. I mean, you have to have dealt damage that turn. You have to have a bit of vampire action going on. Otherwise, this just pings for 1, and that sometimes just won't do anything. And then, I mean, I guess also they have to have something worth killing, something that can actually be killed by it. If your opponent has all 3 toughness creatures, this just might never do anything. Siege Zombie, on the other hand, I will play as many of these as I can get my hands on. I love this little 2-drop. It is great on turn 2. Just a 2-mana 2/2 with an upside. It is great on turn 10. It's sometimes even better on turn 10. And if that's not what you want in your 2-drops, then I don't know what is. I am probably on the Siege Zombie here. I'll play as many of them as I can get. Okay, looks like our drafter is trying to stick to the red game plan. Now, given that, I've been a big fan of Festival Crasher. There's been a little bit of debate floating around on the Magic Twitterverse about this card. I really like the red-white spells package, and I think it can get some pretty solid aggressive starts. Festival Crasher and Spellrune Painter can kill your opponent out of nowhere in conjunction with some of the cheaper pump spells, the 1 mana +2/+0, the 3 mana +2/+2, or 3/3. You can really just get out of hand quick. Now, it also pairs very well with removal spells, something like Eaten Alive, or maybe if we can pick up a Defenestrate or Lightning Bolt, as it were. This pick looks pretty solid if we're going to be forcing... the Neonate's Rush was picked.
Indeed.
Well, I suppose it works with the Voldaren Ambusher. Neonate's Rush can be cool in a spells deck if you're going heavy. I think the Festival Crasher is a little bit better. Neonate's Rush pairs pretty well with Festival Crasher, but I think you want the Crashers. You want the actual thing that you're going to be trying to get triggered before you want the stuff that does the triggering.
Yeah, in this case, it's kind of that like payoff versus enabler dilemma, and in this case, Neonate's Rush, especially because in this sort of archetype, right, your payoffs are cards like Thermo Alchemist, Festival Crasher. Your enablers are just spells of any kind, so you have far more enablers to pick from than you do payoffs, and so I would definitely be looking to take a Festival Crasher over Neonate's Rush if I'm thinking about that deck. Now, it looks like our patient here is looking actually at the Vampires deck. Interestingly enough, it looks like they maybe abandoned the Angel Fire Ignition in mind and are thinking about the Eaten Alive a little bit more, and they want to maybe try to play the black-red thing. We do see a Root Coil Creeper here, which is probably a signal. Like, this is just a really good card in these colors. Not that blue-green has been an overwhelmingly powerful deck or anything, but blue is probably the best color in the format, and you know, this is a fantastic card in its own right. We also see an Eccentric Farmer in the pack, which is a pretty solid green card. Maybe best green common. It's up there. But black is looking really dry. Like, black looks like it's been getting cut. We've seen, like, 2 packs with these, like, Blade Brand, Blood Pact kind of combo things going on here. Yeah. And there's another Arcane Infusion, so maybe blue-red is actually open, and we could move into that sort of spells deck and then maybe just splash an Angel Fire Ignition. These are the things I'm thinking about here. I would be on the Festival Crasher as well. In a pick 5, we see a Thermo Alchemist in the uncommon slot. Like, that's immediately where my mind went. There's another Necrosynthesis, but it looks like our patient here picked up a Search Party Captain, which is a fine white card. But this looks like a little bit of waffling to me. Like, we don't quite know what we're playing. We're not quite sure about any of the things in the signals we've seen so far. So, well, we have a good rare. We've picked up some red cards, and red-white looks like what we can do, so let's pick up the white card.
Yep, Search Party Captain is an okay pickup. I think the Thermo Alchemist would be my pick here.
Easily.
First of all, I have a little bit of a sweet spot for this card. Second, I think this is an indication that the people to your right are not interested in the kind of turbo spells red package, which means you'll probably see more things like Festival Crasher, more stuff like Spellrune Painter, Thermo Alchemist coming around. And if these are going to be coming around, the red spells package can be pretty sweet. And maybe even we wind up in red-white spells, which is kind of my baby, my pet archetype of the format. It's a vector I love, near and dear to my heart. I would take the Thermo Alchemist here and maybe see what direction you can go with it, expecting you to see some more red-white spells. That being said, Search Party Captain, if we wind up in white, it will probably make the deck. I mean, you don't really cut these things. I've cast this for 1 mana before, and it feels awesome.
That's true. You're definitely getting away with something there. Into pick 6, we see a Consider, which, you know, is interesting to see given that blue has seemed kind of cut as well. But otherwise, this pack is not very... Well, there's not a whole lot to say here. There's not a ton going on.
Black is pretty much dry. so I wouldn't expect that we see too much in pack 3. Gavany Trapper's fine here. I mean, it's looking like red white might be open, just straight up open. So yeah, Gavany Trapper's fine to pick up. Now we are moving into white a little bit more here, and our I guess more powerful cards are black and well red. But so this is a little bit of a risky move, but you know I think Gavany Trapper making the deck is a higher upside than say Harvest Tide Infiltrator making the deck.
Right, yeah, you kind of weighing like, well, I'm not likely to play any of these cards, but I'm more likely to play Gavany Trapper than I am to play Harvest Tide Infiltrator or Mounted Dread Knight or something. Pick 7, we see a couple of interesting blue, green and white cards. Candle Trap, Duel for Dominance. There's the Diagraph Rebirth, but the pick here is an Immolation. Now, Immolation is an interesting pick because it's a weird spot in this format. It typically want to use something like this as a shock a lot of the time, and the decks that want shocks in this format want them to be instants, not enchantments. So again, in terms of like the red spells package, this doesn't really fit the bill. And if we wanted solid removal, I'd probably just look to Candle Trap in this pack because you're already looking at white. But Immolation's a fine card. The Duel for Dominance is also kind of interesting. You can turn Coven on, but we don't actually have that many like real creatures, although that does make our Gavany Trapper a little bit better if we're looking to do the Coven stuff. So I think I would have been on Candle Trap over Immolation, but it's close to me. It's pretty close.
I would take the first Immolation over the first Candle Trap, I think. If we wind up in red-white spells, that deck sometimes plays some high-value creatures that you look to defend and augment with Pump and such. But you aren't necessarily going to be turning on Coven, and I think if you can't reliably hit Coven, Candle Trap just gets a lot worse. I mean, maybe their creature stays around to tap with Siege Zombie, or it has an activated ability, or worse, your opponent draws removal for the Candle Trap. I like the Immolation pick here, and I do like kind of getting a little more solid into a color here, although it seems that our patience on white-red, so let's see what's next.
Yeah, so pick 8, we, again, don't have a ton. There's a Stolen Vitality here, which is a fine card, and it does work well in some of those more aggressive combat-oriented red-white decks. It's a pretty solid combat trick here. Fits the bill for the red spells package, too, if you want that. There's also Silverbolt here and a Shadow Beast Sighting, so green is looking potentially kind of open, given the last few packs we've seen. But yeah, Stolen Vitality seems fine here.
I'm probably taking the Silverbolt over it. And here's why. I'm thinking that we're a little bit torn on colors here. We're not too many picks in overall. What is our final deck going to want to look like? We can probably pick up more Pump, more stuff like Stolen Vitality. We currently only have 2 real removal spells. None of these are unconditional. We have some tricky spells, but none of these are really like, oh yeah, this is going to kill most stuff. Silverbolt does kill most stuff, and the best part is it goes in any deck. I think I like hedging because the Silverbolt will almost certainly make the final deck, whereas Stolen Vitality might get cut, or who knows, we might not wind up being in red at all.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Into pick 9, we're kind of rounding out the latter half of this pack here. We do see another Search Party Captain get picked up. That's pretty fine given where we are at. Like, another 4-drop here is fine. We don't have a ton of creatures either, so it's good to be picking up more of those. I don't think I would have taken anything else here. Maybe the Lambhole Harrier, but because we don't have any 2-drops. But yeah, Search Party Captain seems like the pick here for me.
Yeah, that's a nice signal that people to the right don't seem to be wanting to attack with little white creatures too much, which red-white spells, it can do.
That's true. Into pick 10, we just see a Tavern Ruffian in our colors. Not really anything else exciting. This Geist Wave is a little late, but I think this pack did have quite a few other good blue cards. I think this was the pack with Flip the Switch in it and Revenge of the Drowned, and so, maybe Geist Wave is just the bottom of that totem pole. Pick 11, there's a Blessed Defiance. That's fine as well. Kind of fits the combat trick slots, but we don't want too many more of those. And we're kind of just rounding out this pack here with an Arcane Infusion, another Neonate's Rush, and a Snaring Wolf. So nothing too controversial there. Into pack 2.
Ooh. Sad to see that Gisa, but yeah, I mean, Moonrager Slash is exactly what this deck wants. The red-white spells deck, and it's going to look to cast as many Moonrager Slashes as possible. whether it's kind of through buying them back, something like the Ardent Elementalist, or if it's getting extra damage by pinging with other random spells effects, getting Festival Crasher triggers or Thermo Alchemist triggers. This deck can do a lot of direct to face damage, which can let it close out the game after attacking with some dorky little white dude, like creature things, stuff like 2/2s, 1/1s. I like this deck's ability to close out the game, and Lightning Bolt can close out a game all right.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, you do see Olivia's Midnight Ambush and Siege Zombie here with the Gisa, so kind of a rough pack if you're in black anyway. You got to make a choice between all these things, although I think it's pretty clearly Gisa there. Nothing else so interesting for the red-white deck, though. I mean, it's basically Moonranger Slash, so not really upset with this pick. I like staying disciplined, kind of sticking to your colors here. And, we don't have any other really solid black cards, and we sent the signal pretty hard that we don't care about black in the last pack, so... Into pick 2, another Moonranger Slash. Okay. All right. We're getting there. I'll take as many of those as you can get.
Pithing Needle, not really something you should look to play. Dryad's Revival, Firmament Sage, these are just nowhere close to what we're doing. Flare of Faith is nice. I'd like to pick up at least 1 or 2 of these if we're going to be attacking with creatures, especially a lot of humans as are in red-white. Flare of Faith is so much better than Stolen Vitality. Just the fact that you can give your thing indestructible if it's a human, it's very tough for combat to go wrong once your human is like a 5/5 or 6/6 and indestructible.
For sure. On to pick 3, we do finally grab ourselves a Festival Crasher, which is great. There's a Brimstone Vandal here as well, which sometimes the red-white deck can do the day-night flipping thing relatively regularly. There's a Storm Skrillex. It's pretty clear that blue-red is relatively open as far as like these multicolored cards. The blue hasn't really been flowing, but we've been seeing all the blue-white or blue-red uncommons flow through the pack. And then this is our second Kessig Naturalist we've been past, so nobody's really interested in green-red either. But yeah, Festival Crasher seems great.
Easy Crasher here. This deck is going to want 5 of them.
Yeah. Pick 4. Okay, so we see a Vampire Socialite as the pick here, which is a bit intriguing because we aren't really looking to play black at this point, and this card is, we talked a lot about this in our first impressions and our format breakdowns on Draft Chaff, and we said that a 2/2 for 2 with Menace is just a playable card, and in this format it almost doesn't feel like it is. Like, this card has so many times just felt like a dud to me.
Yeah, I'm not loving the dip into black. This is one instance of our patient maybe stubbing their toe and I don't know I'm trying to build the analogy here. You see what I'm doing? I think I'd rather pick up the first something like Abandon the Post or Falconwrath Perforator. We're a little low on creatures that can attack, and we're even lower on 2-drops, which this deck wants. This deck can play a handful of 2-drops and 1-drops. You want probably like between 6 and 8 creatures that can be attacking by turn 3. That way you can really leverage your late game burn or pings and ability to close out the game. Not gonna lie, I do like 1 copy of Abandon the Post in decks like this. Sometimes, think about how we make this card its best. If this is 1 in a red to remove 2 creatures for the rest of the game, that's a really good card. Especially when it has flashback, you can maybe do it twice in a turn or again the next turn. That meaning, of course, you have to find a way to end the game before it's relevant that your opponent's stuff can still attack. Well, just kill them before they get to do anything else. So I like Abandon the Post here. I probably would take the Perforator here. Not the best card. Sunset Revelry is okay too, but it can be a little awkward. Probably would have taken the Perforator or Abandon the Post over the Socialite here.
Agreed. Into pick 5, we see another Abandon the Post. We just heard that you'd like to pick one of these up. Probably can wheel either of them. I'm not expecting people to take this too highly. Lunar Frenzy's a solid card, though. It's really nice to grab that first strike. The trample helps a lot and can kind of close games out of nowhere, especially with these Moonranger Slashes. You can chain together some pretty wicked turns with the Festival Crashers and a Lunar Frenzy. That seems like a solid pickup. I do like Electric Revelation in certain decks. It's certainly not like an exceptional card or anything, but getting some card draw in decks like this where we don't really have any, and this format is very heavily about card advantage and who's out card advantaging who and things of that nature, in red-white typically doesn't get a ton of true card advantage in that there's not a whole lot of stuff that says draw cards, but it does get card advantage in other ways. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with Lunar Frenzy here.
Yep. Red white, you have to be a little sneaky about how you get your card advantage. Not all white creatures are created equal here. You want to pick up some of the ones that have Disturb because those are functionally 2-for-1s. And Search Party Captain is a nice little 2-for-1 in itself. Then again, I am on just Lunar Frenzy here. If you have 6 lands and a Lunar Frenzy in hand, it's pretty easy to just win the game.
Pick 6, another Moonrager Slash.
Nice.
That's a late Moonrager
really
Slash.
Happy to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Not a whole lot else to say here. Another Abandon the Post. Maybe we're almost guaranteed to get one of the 3 back.
Now, I already have my forerunner for my worst bad card to lose to for the end of the format. It's got to be Sun Gold Barrage. It's another 3-mana removal spell, and it might look unconditional, but there's not that much stuff with toughness 4 or greater. I mean, just look at all the creatures in this deck. There's not a single, well, I guess there's Tavern Ruffian, but besides Tavern Ruffian, which I don't expect to make the final cut, pretty much none of this stuff has 4 toughness. So I like the slash here over the seemingly possibly better, but actually way worse removal spell.
Into pick 7, not a whole lot going on for us. Burn of the Accursed is fine, and I think that's the correct pick here, but I wouldn't be surprised if this gets cut.
Yep. Some decks want one of these, close it out. Nice top end thing. The 2 damage to face is relevant sometimes. It's fine.
Pick 8, we do see an Ardent Elementalist, and this is exactly the kind of card this deck is looking for with 3 Moonrager Slashes. When you're playing Elementalist, you really need something to get back. Getting back a Stolen Vitality is not really where you want to be with this card. Getting back Moonrager Slash is exactly where you want to be with this card.
Yep. It functionally acts as an additional copy. It's going to be great. You're going to get to do a lot of face damage with this deck.
Pick 9, we see our Hungry for More gets back to us. But otherwise, not a whole lot else. We could now pick up the Perforator. We are still super low on 2-drops. In fact, only the 1 to speak of, so would really like to get that. So I think I would take the Perforator here instead of speculating on another black card that we're probably not going to play. I think the ship has sailed for black for us.
Agreed. I'm slamming that Perforator here and being pretty happy that we got another 2-drop.
Pick 10, looks like we're rare drafting. Never one to shy away from a rare draft.
Yeah, of course, we're not ever moving into any of these other colors. Just slam that Pithing Needle. Go get some gems.
And we're kind of rounding out this pack here. Across its counter guide. Again, nothing really to take. You could argue to take the Raise for the Effigy just because it's in our colors, but neither of them are making the cut, so we'll just keep going. We did pick up a Perforator, and one of the Abandon the Posts did circle back to us, but we ended up picking the 3rd up in pick 13 here, and we kind of round out that pack. So into pack 3.
Wow.
This is interesting.
I think we're kind of getting punished for not picking up that additional Perforator earlier. It seems that our patient here wanted to slam that additional 2-drop. However, Borrowed Time is a strong unconditional removal spell, and it's so good against all the annoying stuff. It takes care of the big beefy werewolves, just clean 1-for-1. It takes care of an annoying disturbed creature. You don't have to deal with their Griff coming back. Just get rid of that thing the first time for good. However, there's also a Fangblade Brigand, which is a really punishing attacker. And this thing, it's a little slow, but once it gets going, I mean, you just can't enter combat with this. You can never block it. Gaining first strike is just so big, and that threat of activation is huge. If it ever flips, that's just, you're just gonna win probably if you have enough creatures on board, unless they can deal with it. I think I'm probably on the Borrowed Time here. We have some solid removal, yeah. Let's be honest, it's pretty close to the Brigand. I guess the eating your vegetables pick is the additional 2-drop, but I think if we had stuck with our picks, taking a few more 2-drops earlier, probably would have been able to pick up either the Borrowed Time or the Brigand. Here, given the deck that exists, hate to say it, it's probably right for the Perforator.
Agreed. Yeah, I think I would have probably taken the Brigand over the Borrowed Time. We just have a ton of removal at this point, and while Borrowed Time deals with the things that our removal doesn't deal with, so does Brigand if our opponents are dead. So,
yeah, that's true.
Into pick 2, wow, this is a pack. We see another Falkenrath Perforator, another Ardent Elementalist. Wouldn't be upset to pick up another of these, given all of our Moonrager Slashes. A Play with Fire is a fine card. Again, decks like this that want shock, and this is objectively better shock, so that's always good to see. But Sun Gold Sentinel here was the pick from our patient, and I don't hate that. Sun Gold Sentinel's a great card, and I think we're going to be able to turn Coven on relatively regularly.
I don't even think you need to get Coven on. This is just, it's graveyard hate. It's a 2-drop. It's a 3/2. Like, it's all good. Yeah, slam that thing. And probably going to wheel something good out of this pack. There's a bunch of red and white stuff in here that we'd be pretty happy playing.
For sure. In a pick 3, we see another Hungry for More get picked up, and that's a bit interesting given that there's an Ardent Elementalist in the pack. I definitely don't agree with this pick. I think, again, we are very clearly not playing black at this point, so there's also an Olivia's Midnight Ambush, which I probably would have taken over Hungry for More anyway. if we were
truly
black.
splashing. There's also Can't Stay Away, which is just also a fine card. Yeah, Ardent Elementalist, Search Party Captain, Flare of Faith, even the Immolation I probably would have taken over Hungry for More here. The exact order, how's our 2-drop slot looking? We've got 4 2-drops now. We have the Untitled Chapter to play on turn 1. This deck wants a few more creatures to play early, but it can kind of turn on the Search Party Captain and the Elementalist. I don't know, given that many Moonrager slashes, probably taking the Elementalist, though I could see also taking the Captain or a Flare of Faith here.
Pick 4, we got old Stick Fingers just floating around the table. Not likely to get picked up anytime soon. There is a Flip the Switch, which is interesting to see, but we see a Morning Patrol, which is a pretty solid card. I like this. I like pretty much anything with Disturb on it in this format. It's just, again, intrinsic card value, or card advantage rather, and, getting your creatures to die and then just come back into more creatures is always a good thing. There is a Silver Bolt as well, but we've got bolts covered.
Yep. No notes, Doctor. Get on to the next one. Is that why that's Silver Bolt? Because it's Bolt and it deals 3? Did I just get that now?
Yeah, you just got that. Yep.
Was I supposed to get that earlier?
Yes,
the fact that it's named Bolt and
indeed.
Okay. Whatever. All right. So here we're going to pick up a 5-drop. It's a Mounted Dread Knight. This may get cut. This kind of deck can play 16 lands pretty easily. So whether or not we wind up with a 5-drop like Mounted Dread Knight in the deck, who knows? We'd ideally like to have a much lower curve with, maybe 3 more 2-drops and maybe 1 or no 5-drops. But there's nothing else really in the pack, so I'm okay with this pickup here.
Yeah, as it stands right now, I'm looking at cutting Tavern Ruffian and probably the Candle Guide and probably Burn the Accursed. And then Search Party Captains are not really 4-drops. So our only real 4-drop is an Ardent Elementalist at that point. So looking like a lower curve. Here we see Galvanic Iteration, which is an awesome card. Not really going to make the cut here, but we do get another Festival Crasher, which, no complaints there.
This is a tough one. Presented with Candlegrove Witch, Festival Crasher, and Unruly Mob. Mob is clearly the lowest here. This Mob can only really work if you have a ton of zombie generation. I think its home is really in black-white.
Yeah.
Candlegrove Witch is very nice. This card will often be a 2/2 flyer in the late game for what purpose it serves. The way this deck is looking, I think Festival Crasher's got to be it though. And say sorry to the Witch, but with 3 slashes and a handful of Neonates rushes, yeah, you won Festival Crashers.
Yeah. Festival Crasher is just so much more likely to get turned on than Candlegrove Witch is at this point. And okay, now we're just getting handed the good stuff. There is another Festival Crasher in this pack, though, but you're not passing Sunrise Cavalier in this seat, I don't think.
I love this Cavalier. 3 mana, 3/3 haste, trample. Nice. Lovely little card. Now, does this deck want another Crasher or 2? Yes. I think probably the truest, most resolved pick here would have been the 3rd Crasher. However, I'm probably also taking the Cavalier here. It's very, very solid value card. Nice little rare draft here with Rite of Harmony. This card is unplayable and limited, unfortunately. Part of a very fun green-white Scoot Swarm tokens deck in Standard, though, for what that matters.
Yeah, and we're just kind of moving through the last half of this pack. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot interesting going on. A Tavern Ruffian, Cathar Commando picked up over an Immolation, and we do grab a Flare of Faith, so that's good to see.
No respect for Can't Stay Away.
None at all. In fact, they can stay away. Devious Cover up here late, and then a Hedgeridge's Mask. Not a whole lot that's actually going to make the cut. So here, let's jump over to sealeddeck.tech. And we'll take a look at how we build this, right? So we're going to start over here with white, bring in the Blessed Defiance, maybe the Gavany Trapper. Cathar Command is probably going to make the cut. maybe
For
not.
sure.
But we'll, I think that's a fair assumption. Flare of Faith as well.
This deck can leverage those 3-power 2-drops to get in for just a bunch of damage earlier. This deck is going to work in chunks of 3s, right? Like, you're going to smack in with either the Cathar Commando or the Sun Gold Sentinel. And eventually your opponent will, they could take 6, 9 damage off of that if they stumble or don't have good blocks. Or, of course, if you happen to draw one of your 3 bolts, that you can get in for a bunch of damage. And then with access to 3 bolts and an Ardent Elementalist, you're going to be able to close out the game. Not to mention Angel Fire Ignition, which, that can really set your opponent back, especially when life is actually a fairly relevant factor in this format.
Indeed. Yeah, and it's also, I didn't make a mistake here. Oop, now I have. I put the Search Party Captains in at the 3-drop slot because I think that's most often when we're going to be playing them. But obviously they are technically 4-drops.
Yeah, I agree.
How do we like this? We're missing a card unless we want to play the 16 lands.
I think we do want to bring in one Abandon the Post. We're a little low on creatures right now, though. That's think true. We could consider bringing in, hate to say, but maybe the Sanctifier just for an additional thing.
Just a split view. See what we're looking at. So bring in the Sanctifier just to have. Do we want to be playing? Well, I guess we want to be playing the 17 lands rather than 16.
I think we can actually get away with 16 here. This deck curves out at 4 right now. Right. And I think we could honestly get away with the Sanctifier and the Dread Knight. Actually, is the Ambusher hiding over there in the sideboard?
The Ambusher is in the side, yeah. So we could probably.
Yeah, I think that's enough better than the Dread Knight. Plus, that little ping effect can combine with something like Moonrager Slash or Neonate's Rush to ping down a creature.
Yeah, we do have a couple of other vampires, so it's not going to be massively, pinging down anything massive, but it might get something.
I think we can go down probably Neonate's Rush.
Just cut both of them, yeah. Well, we could cut the one at least. Do we actually want Immolation here?
It's a pretty solid removal spell. Sometimes your opponent will play the Hobbling Zombie, the 3-mana 2/2, and you'll answer it for 1 mana, and they will feel like they're about to lose the game. I'm liking this build here. Yeah, this looks like a pretty solid little red-white aggro list. Now, this list you will have to think when you're playing about maybe making some decisions you might not otherwise. You might have to trade away one of your 2-drops to get in for like 6 or 7 damage. You might make some attacks that you might otherwise not. You might have to just knock the old top of the deck and say, well, I'm not able to win this game because I have some maybe not ideal card quality, but I do have like 2 Moonrager Slashes left in my 15 cards left in the library. And if I make this bad attack that tosses away 2 of my creatures, it'll put my opponent to 3. And I'm not dead on the next turn. So I think this deck will require some finesse to pilot. However, it can do some pretty cool things. There's a bit of power in here in the Crashers and the Ignition, and of course the 3 bolts, which is just a nice thing to have access to.
Yeah, and I think one last thing to mention here is had our patient here stuck to sort of the red spells theme that was being seen earlier, we'd have 1 extra Crasher and a Thermal Alchemist in this pool, which I think would go the extra. You'd much rather have a Thermal Alchemist than like this Voldaren Ambusher, for instance.
Absolutely.
So, just a little lesson on trying to read the lanes a little bit, see the signals, and kind of stick with them. And but otherwise, I think this actually was a fairly solid draft overall. So, thanks for the submission, and we'll catch you in the next Draft Doctor.
See ya.